He signed the divorce papers with a smirk sharp enough to cut glass. His arrogance filled the room like heavy perfume, choking everyone who breathed it in. The courtroom had fallen into a tense silence, the kind that swallows words before they're spoken. Across from me sat my husband, or soon-to-be ex-husband, David Williams, a man dressed in power and pride. His navy blue suit was perfectly pressed, his gold wristwatch glinting under the fluorescent lights. He wore that same grin he had the day we first met, that confident smile that once made my knees weak. But that smile, I realized now, was not confidence. It was calculation. David thought he had already won, that this courtroom was a stage built for his victory. He thought the quiet schoolteacher he married would walk away with the crumbs he offered. But as the judge began to read aloud the contents of my father's sealed will, I saw his smile fade. And in that moment, I remembered every single time he'd called me just a teacher. 3 years earlier I was Sarah Miller, a 28-year-old English teacher at a public high school in a small town. My father had just passed away after a long battle with diabetes. He wasn't a rich man, but he was the kind of father who never allowed me to feel poor. He left behind an old bungalow, a small piece of farmland, and a heart full of lessons. "Sarah," he'd always say, "true wealth isn't what fills your pockets, but what fills your heart." I didn't understand it then. I met David a few months after my father's funeral, at a friend's wedding in the city. He was everything my grieving heart thought it needed. Tall, confident, smooth-talking, with that charming smile that made ordinary words sound like promises. He told me I deserved more than my quiet life. He made me laugh again. Within 6 months, he proposed with a ring that sparkled brighter than my sense of caution. My friends envied me. My colleagues teased me, saying I was lucky to be marrying a big man. But no one tells you that sometimes a man's wealth can be a weapon. At first, David treated me like a queen. Flowers every Friday, dinners at fancy restaurants, vacations abroad. He introduced me to his wealthy friends and family as my lovely Sarah. But after the wedding the tone changed. The first time I noticed it was at one of his business dinners. His colleagues were laughing over drinks when one of them asked, "Sarah, what do you do?" Before I could answer, David chuckled and said, "Oh, she's just a teacher. You know, she likes kids and chalk." Everyone laughed except me. He didn't even look at me, didn't notice how that word just stripped me bare. Over time, the man who once adored me became the man who resented me. He'd make snide comments about my job, my background, even my father. "It's okay, love," he'd say with mock sympathy. "Your father was just a mechanic. Not everyone can be a businessman like my dad." Stung every time. But I stayed silent, convincing myself that humility was strength. When I mentioned pursuing a master's degree to become a school principal one day, he smiled, not with encouragement but pity. "Why stress yourself?" he said. "You're married to me now. You don't need to prove anything. I'll take care of us." Thought it was love. It was control. The change was slow but steady. He started coming home late. The phone calls he used to take in front of me became whispers behind closed doors. He'd turn his phone face down when I entered the room. When I asked questions, he'd sigh dramatically. "Sarah, not everything needs to be discussed. You won't understand business matters." I began to shrink in my own home. Silent, invisible, unimportant. At work I found solace. My students reminded me that I still mattered. One of them, Chloe, came from a broken home and was struggling to pass her exams. I spent hours tutoring her after school, and when she finally earned a scholarship, she ran into my arms crying, "Miss Sarah, I did it. Because you believed in me." That moment reignited something inside me. I was more than someone's wife. I was a woman who changed lives. But David didn't care. He mocked my little victories. "So one of your students got a scholarship," he said once, smirking. "Good. Maybe she'll earn enough to buy you something nice one day." That was the night I stopped arguing back. Then one humid evening in March, my life shifted. I returned from a school event earlier than usual and heard David's voice from his study. He was laughing on the phone. I was about to knock when I heard my name. Sarah. Don't worry about her. It is naive. By the time I'm done, even her father's land will be under my name. I'll sell it, clear the mortgage, and she'll thank me for being generous. The world stopped spinning. I pressed my back against the wall, my heart pounding in my ears. The man I shared my bed with was plotting to take the only thing my father left me. That night I cried until morning, not out of heartbreak but out of clarity. A week later, David called me into the living room. His face was calm, almost rehearsed. "We need to talk," he began. I sat opposite him. "About what?" He sighed dramatically. "About us. I think we've both known this marriage isn't working. I've already spoken to my lawyer. It's best we end things peacefully." He slid a brown envelope across the table. "These are the papers. I'll take care of you. You don't have to worry." When I asked what would happen to the house and my father's land, he smiled gently. "I'll handle all that. You'll have your settlement. You'll be fine." I forced a small smile and said, "I'll read through it." That night, I opened the envelope and my worst fears were confirmed. Everything was written to favor him. He would get the house, the cars, and even the farmland, supposedly to settle outstanding debts. I was to receive a lump sum barely enough to survive a year. David had planned everything. But he made one mistake: he underestimated me. The next morning I called my colleague who gave me the number of a lawyer, attorney Grace Thompson, a woman known for being calm, brilliant, and fierce in court. When I met her, she looked me over with keen, kind eyes. "Tell me everything," she said. I told her. Every detail. When I was done, she leaned back and said, "Men like your husband thrive on silence. But I don't keep quiet." She asked about my father's land. "What's on it?" "Nothing much," I said. "Just a bit of old farmland and a half-fallen shed." She smiled faintly. "Let's find out anyway. You'd be surprised what humble men leave behind." 2 weeks later my phone rang. Her voice was electric with excitement. "Sarah, are you sitting?" "Yes. That land of yours, it's not empty. It's sitting on one of the newly discovered oil veins in that region. The government confirmed the presence of crude. The land is valued at nearly $9 million. My breath caught. "What?" "That's not all," she continued. "Your father also left a trust account in your name, one he'd set up secretly and invested in over the years. Between the stocks and interest, it's worth about $2 million. I broke down in tears. My father, the man David mocked for being poor, had been wise all along. Grace's voice softened. "Your father protected you even after his death. He made the trust untouchable until you turned 30 or got divorced. He must have known a man like David might try something." I sat in silence, tears streaming down my face. "Dad, you knew." The day of the final hearing arrived. The courtroom was packed. Family, friends, even reporters. The city loved drama, and this case had plenty. David arrived looking like a king about to be crowned. His suit was white and gold. His lawyer one of the most expensive in town. He even winked at me across the room as if to say, "You don't stand a chance." And that's where we'll leave it for today. But trust me, the final part drops tomorrow, and you don't want to miss what happens next. So hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and be the first to see how it all ends.